And welcome to another exciting episode of Season 2 of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, and today I have a very awesome special guest for you all. I've met her through a Facebook group, and we have a friend in common. And so, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Olga.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be on the show. Very excited. Every time I talk to you, some interesting topics come up, and I feel really nice. You have a really nice energy to you, which is a welcome
thank you.
energy. Yeah.
And in defense, I did not even attempt your last name because I am sure I would just butcher it to no end.
It's Olga Aydınoğlu, which is my husband's last name. So I have my first name is Olga, which is Russian, and my second name is Turkish. And I recently become Turkish citizen, so it's kind of, I like the transition of half of my name being Russian, half of my name being Turkish, and also being Russian citizen and Turkish citizen. So,
well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
So for reference point, you have a really interesting background and skill set. Would you like to give a little bit of your background and what you do?
Yes, I was thinking of how to do that because it just seems like something very big, gigantic, and wordless. How do I possibly put in words, right? So I thought as an icebreaker, I have a little poem, which also describes what I do. Coincidentally, because I am a writer. So, and this is the kind of stuff I write, which is partly, I call it partly channeled, partly mine, Tales of the Spirit and the Divine, which is also my book series. So it's just something that comes through naturally when I have questions. So to my one of my questions of what am I and what do I do, this poem came through. I am a traveler. Where do you go? I fly far away into my soul. What do you do there? I stay there. I sleep. Sometimes I awaken from a dream very deep. Then I wonder in awe how it felt to believe the stories, the lore of my own dreams. The stories were fake then, made up and untrue. Not at all. Not at all. Imagine they may be. They are truer than true. They paint the relationship between me and you. Who are you, my traveler, deep within? I am bigger than life, not yet all felt, not yet all seen. I travel my lifetimes. I travel through time. I am alone in this darkness of mine. I touch myself lightly. I touch myself deep to see if I'm brightly lit up or asleep. I find myself over and over again in different faces, in joy or in pain. I cry with my sorrows. I laugh with my kids. I color myself any way I please. And it goes on, but I think it kind of says the gist of it. Um, so, a shamanic healing practitioner is also one of the things I do, in addition to being an artist and writer. Um, and I feel like the number one thing that I do is actually, like a kid, I look at myself as a structure and I deconstruct myself and I wonder what I'm made of, how I am made. Um, and coincidentally, it also is a search for discovering how the universe functions, but it also takes me within, because without learning how I function, my soul what is the construction of my soul? I can't also, as within, so without, as above, so below. So if I go discovering myself, I also discover the universe and vice versa. So, yeah, like a kid, I go within, I deconstruct stuff, I look how I am built, and then if I like to, I am going to change how I'm built, like reprogram myself, so to speak, and then watch the new me, and then repeat the process again, always kind of reconstructing myself. So this is kind of the best definition I have of being a shamanic healing practitioner, of also helping other people do that. And if they don't want to do that by themselves, I am there to go in and help restructure something that they find painful, for example. So I go into their soul world and I help them to, yeah, kind of reprogram themselves, restructure their inner world so that they would experience in this life something that they asked for, like me. Like, let's say they said, I have relationship problems, or I have money problems, or I have a fear of this, I have a fear of that, or I have a chronic something. So we can work on that. And the way I do that is I work psychically with the soul world. I find out what's going on, and then I help to change that. Yeah, so in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do.
No, that's really cool. And so, what got you started in all this work? Like,
Well,
what was your calling like?
I actually kind of started I know exactly at 2 years old. Because at 2 years old, I was in bed and I had vivid experience, and I don't know how to call that vision or experience or something, but I'm there. So I was in one of my unresolved, painful past lives, and yeah, I didn't want to die in that life, but I was dying in that life, the last moments, and I really didn't want to. It was basically a warrior in the field, and I was just bleeding to death by a big rock because somebody stabbed me, like a group of people, and yeah, and I was just feeling really, really. It's just like my whole world turned around because I had a wife and a kid, a son. And then I realized at that time just how arrogant I was in thinking nothing will ever happen to me and that I was the strongest person in the world and I wouldn't ever die. And my whole philosophy of life, like being a warrior is the most, the best thing I can be, because why would you be anything else, like a farmer? Because you know that somebody like me, a warrior, will come one day and pillage your village. Like, why would you ever invest your time in something like a house and a farm, when somebody will come and, like me, and will fight you and will win probably because you don't practice the warrior stuff. Like, you won't be strong enough to defend your village, so I didn't see the point in that, and I thought that the best way to make money is to be a warrior, and it didn't really matter to me who I was fighting for, as long as I got my gold and my booty after the war. But when I was dying, I was just so sorry for all of my decisions, because I realized that I just left my wife and kid without anything, and I knew that they would just, at that time, their life would be really horrible from after my death. And I was just grabbing on with my all hands and feet trying to get back there, and I was just really didn't want to go away. And I felt like spirit, or actually I felt my now I know it's my spiritual team, but also it's like the divine, as I call it, which you can call it whatever word you want. I was given like a choice. Okay, if you remember who you were, and it's like weird, like who you are beyond that warrior and beyond this girl in bed. If you can remember that, you can go back in that lifetime, and you will die as a kid here. So I was trying my best to remember who am I beyond the warrior and beyond Olga. And I cried myself to sleep trying to figure out who am I, because it was like at the tip of my tongue. I was about to remember who am I now I can define it as a soul, more like a soul that creates incarnations. And I couldn't remember it. And just before I went to sleep crying, I was shown like, look, you didn't remember who you are, from which place you can actually reprogram yourself and choose what you want to do. You could actually stay alive there if you remember who you are. I mean, in a way, kind of, you couldn't. So then what is your decision? And I felt like this lifetime is going to help with that lifetime too. So I was like, okay, I accept that I am going to be this girl, Olga, and those people in the kitchen laughing out loud and cooking and arguing are my parents. And I agree. And then I never forgot that. And I couldn't always, like, growing up, right? If I remember that I agreed to be in this body because I couldn't go back and save myself in another life, and that I am also something beyond all these bodies, I couldn't really connect to life fully 100% since I was a kid. So then this thing was always in my head, and I was always thinking, I'm gonna get to who am I? I'm gonna get that answer. So in my pursuit of who am I, all these things that I do, this is where it began. Yeah.
And what's interesting too is, we don't think about today when, about, being a mercenary or being a warrior, is in today's terms, if you die in a battlefield, your family is taken care of by sorts through, means. But in the times that we're talking, nobody was going to sit there and go, wow, this person had 30 bags of gold attached to them. Let's make sure that gets back to the family. No, they were going to divvy it up amongst themselves, and nothing went back. So, yeah, that's a hardship too of, they didn't have those methods back then of being a mercenary or warrior. Your family is going to be taken care of if something happens on the battlefield. That's why you would definitely be like, I could see you on the ground not wanting to die and think yourself invincible, because it's like, yeah, you die, there's
Your
no
family
one
does.
to help your family.
Hmm. Yeah, but actually, with shamanism, which I learned from my teacher, who is mostly their traditions are Celtic and a Scandinavian tradition, and she has a teacher, like teacher of my teacher, who is also kind of sometimes teaching us and mostly teaching her, and then she passes down her knowledge to us, her students. With the practice of shamanism, I actually learned to resolve that lifetime, um, the pain and the regret and the feeling of, there being no resolution, and the pain and suffering that carries on. Yeah, this is actually a good example of what we do in shamanism. Is we resolve other lifetimes that were not resolved, that we're still carrying, and we don't even know how we're carrying it. Maybe we're carrying it in a chronic disease, like a physical thing that appears, and it depends on our levels of awareness of what we're carrying. So yeah, I learned to travel back to my different lifetimes, including that one, and resolve them one by one. And the resolution usually happens. It's every resolution is unique because there is no kind of structure or a rule book that says if this then this, like we study at school today, with like neat definitions and everything, logical steps. But I learned that the wife and the kid also are incarnations of a soul, let's say. I mean, their own souls. And I like to use this word, it takes two to tango. Nobody is a true victim of a situation, or, a true complete evil perpetrator, as I see it now. Because I saw myself as an evil perpetrator who, and my wife and kid were victims. So I was trying to right that wrong.
Yeah,
I was trying
little
to wrong.
reverse psychology there.
Yeah. And it was kind of reverse because I understood that they also have free will, and we know what we're doing in our lifetimes. So I couldn't have done what I did to them if they weren't actually on some level of their consciousness, knowing that that's what they're going to get into, because for some reason their soul was seeking that experience for something that it was seeking, like a greater adventure, greater wisdom, greater journey. So they were seeking an experience where this would happen to them.
Yeah.
And a
Um,
lot of, yeah.
yeah, I'm going to interrupt because and I normally don't do this, but I think that is such a powerful awareness that I would actually like, could you repeat that awareness? Because that is something I think a lot of people struggle with. And if they could hear this, that will help them with, coming to terms with things, is that awareness. So if you could repeat that again, can you, or was that guided to you and you don't remember what you said? Because that happens to me.
I'll just rephrase it that we have free will and we have different levels of consciousness, and we are more aware of more stuff on different levels of consciousness, and we do create ourselves. Just like in my poem, I said I color myself any way I please, right? And that does include painful experiences, if that is what our, yeah, It's a very hard thing to talk about because it's useful at some points of self-exploration where you reach that level of your own consciousness, a level of your soul, and you see the reason why you did something, such as hurt yourself. Um, and in that moment, it makes sense to, yeah, like it's not painful to realize that. And then the pain actually goes away because you can forgive yourself. Um, but it's not a useful thing to, like, as a definition to kind of say, like, oh, we create our life, so that means all the pain and suffering also we create. Because then you would go and talk to people who are currently in pain and say, well, you created this. What can I say? Because on the one hand, it's true, but on the other hand, we are on this level of consciousness, so we get to play this game now on this level of consciousness where we have the ability to say, hey, you're in pain, let me help you. Or, uh, am I explaining myself kind of clearly?
You are, and the part that I was really resonating to and was wanting to make sure that people heard was that part when you said you realized you were aware of your choices as the mercenary warrior. They were at choice being the wife and son. So you did not cause them hardship because this was something they came in to learn.
I did
So
cause
to speak.
hardship. Okay, cool. I like this. Um, so there's a concept that I really love, which is how I see the world. And I see I see divinity, or maybe something we can call magic, or I like the word divine. I see it as this golden light, which is one, like all of us one. Um, I see that in the space where two opposites are two opposites that are opposite of each other. That means they cannot coexist at the same time. In the space and time and situation where they do concurrently exist at the same time, that I see as divinity when you can put two opposites together. I guess it's like duality or something. How I'm not good with words all of the time. Um, like something simple like love and hate can exist at the same time. How's that possible? And that exists somewhere in us, which is a place of being alive. That is an exploration of how love and hate can exist within me at the same time. So I did cause them pain, but also on some level of their decision making, they accepted that I will cause them pain. And it doesn't mean that somebody can be kind of written off and as I guess we're talking about assigning blame then in this case. And kind of, I like to answer it with it takes two to tango. It was a mutual experience where I do have to uh, atone and like experience forgiveness for myself and asking for their forgiveness. And there still is a need for resolution of this event, but yet also knowing that they agreed to tango, with me in this
Right.
dance. It also adds a level of understanding of just what really transpired and how powerful we are in creating things and why we create things. And you can find out why you created this too.
Right. And I think on a certain level too though, it's real easy I think emotionally to say I'm 100% at fault and don't give credence to what other people's, what I call lessons could be. And so, yeah, that's what I think is really great about what you were saying is, yes, me doing something may have led to this, but it was something that was mutually agreed upon. I didn't do and put them in this situation. So there's like, yeah, it's like you're saying, it may become more like a 50-50 blame. You're responsible for your part, they're responsible for their part, but the situation as a whole is not a one person's fault over another. It's an equal fault. And so therefore we don't have to, in my opinion, how I see and feel that is, go to the extreme of looking at, okay, what did I do to this person? What did I do to this person? How that affected them? What did I rob them of? Because then I'm taking away their part. And so, like you're saying, is now the way to look at it is, this is my part. This is what I did. And this was what was wrong about what I did. But that's where it ends. That's where the healing ends, because otherwise you take on their issues and lessons, and that can be detrimental, in my opinion. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, a lot of the things we work with, and I work with as part of healing, is working with blame, which is very painful and detrimental, guilt that comes as a result of that, shame, and that, shame, blame, guilt, resentment, and then self-deprecation because of that, and then self-punishment, and that leads to violence. So Yoda was right. From Star Wars.
I'm telling you, there is more wisdom in those movies than anyone could ever imagine.
Yeah. I feel they are kind of also partly channeling and partly, and channeling, when I say channeling, I don't mean channeling necessarily something or someone else, but you're channeling your own spirit, like your own soul, too, all the time, by creating this body continuously in this physical life. But yeah, I totally agree. These movies, they know what they're talking about. But yeah, a big part of the healing is dealing with those things, like the guilt that we carry because we're blaming ourselves, and we're shaming ourselves, and we try to be violent to ourselves in desire to right a wrong, but then we are kind of getting ourselves in a hamster wheel, or like a vicious cycle, which is not resolvable, because we're trying to wrong a right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, right and wrong. I keep saying that wrong. We try to right a wrong, or deal with a hurt or a pain or an event of violence, whether physical or non-physical, by putting more violence. So we're on ourselves, but does it matter where we're putting extra violence? We're just trying to fight violence with violence, or like trying to fight fire with more fire. It kind of just gets worse and worse.
Right.
So,
So another way you could look at it is, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, is say you're a soldier in an army, you're in a battlefield, and half of the enemy's army is killed, and you were a part of that. So, in looking back, you could say, I killed those people. And then you'd start taking on, oh my God, I'm a murderer. I murdered these people. And look at all of this that I caused. But you don't take into effect you were following orders, and they were equally at fault being on the other side, and their lesson could have been to die on a battlefield and to experience that. And so you gave them a gift where mentally, where we are, we look at it as, oh my God, what did I do? And start doing the proverbial whipping on the back, trying to repent and atone, when in fact there may be nothing to atone for.
Yeah, or I would say that we need, we do need to kind of, from my experience,
I'm not saying killing is right.
Yeah.
Because it was a war, it was okay. I'm just meaning, don't take it on in the bigger picture of these hundreds of people died because I was there. It's, you may have been responsible for 10, but it's a difference of perspective of saying, my part was following orders, defending my land, or following orders to seize this land or something. And if I didn't follow the orders, this would have been the punishment. And it's like you start to look at it differently and going, okay, and it's easier, I think, to get forgiveness for yourself than looking at, oh my God, 300 people died on the battlefield that I was on. I can never get forgiveness for that.
Yeah, and that would be like a kind of like a dead end story. And yeah, you're right with forgiveness. From my experience, forgiveness is actually the number one lesson we learned in shamanism, like forgiveness. And we can relearn that a lot, like forgiveness. Just every day we can learn more about forgiveness on different layers. So forgiveness really is a kind of gigantic medicine for, I think, everything. It's not only forgiveness, but everything can use forgiveness. And I guess I'll give you an example also of like a non-war situation and victims and perpetrators. Because now I'll give you an example of me being the victim. Whereas as a warrior, I was kind of the perpetrator, the evil guy who caused harm. So I've had, through years of kind of traveling within myself and visiting different lifetimes for healing various parts of me, I've seen lifetimes of mine where I was like a peasant that would have to carry water or clean and cook and just serve all my life without owning anything, and just being told that what I want or who I am doesn't matter at all. It only matters, what my job is and that I'm doing it. And like a lot of where I just kind of disappeared, and just wanted, it's a horrible experience on the one hand. And another experience where I was a midwife, helping people not only with giving birth, but also with abortions a long time ago. And I was using also I could say shamanic methods. Basically was working with nature and soul world again. So I was working with that to help people to get abortions so that they don't die and they're fine. And people came, people would come to me, crying like their world is over because maybe they cheated, or maybe they just can't have more kids because they're, whatever is their family situation, or maybe they're not married yet or something like that. Because at that time, if you're pregnant and you're not married, I mean, your life is going to end pretty much. If not physically, then in other ways. Like you will be considered to be
Discarded.
yeah,
You would be thrown out.
yeah, which is the same as death, basically. And I've had lifetimes of being ostracized in a similar way, actually. Yeah, like I'm telling you these things because there are different notes we're playing in like maybe the same karmic story, but we're being in different positions of the same issue, so to speak. So I was also in a lifetime where I was thrown out of a society and um, faced um, actually freezing death. And then there was a lifetime where I was ostracized for being a female who loved to enjoy herself, um, and still staying in the village, which is even worse than dying immediately because there's shame forever and you're an outsider forever. And also, I was a midwife for people who don't want that kind of lifetime. So I helped them to get those abortions with the help of plants and earth medicine and things like that. So finally, I was found out and I was publicly executed. And a lot of the people who I helped, and they were begging for, for help, like, please, 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 I need to, I can't have this child. Those people who I helped were standing there in the crowd watching, and they didn't say anything in my defense, while I was publicly tortured and slowly killed. Um, as an old woman. And then I had to sit with myself for a long time and figure out all these connections and figuring out, blame. Because if you understand where they're coming from, if they spoke for me, they would basically admit to their issue, and then they would lose their face and lose their livelihood, and then it would kind of cancel my help. Like you just, I helped you so you can have this life, but now you speak for me and you also are going to die. So is that really what I wanted? Probably not. Because then not only do I die, but all of my work dies with me. So it makes more sense that they didn't speak for me. And I was actually talking to the woman, me, who was dying, because me from Olga perspective thinks one thing, and me from the woman dying, she was thinking a whole different thing, and she taught me a lot of wisdom about life. And you could say, oh, I was a victim and all those people are terrible evil doers and they should be punished or something like that, but I don't feel that, because I could also travel to my soul and ask, why did I create this experience of me dying publicly like that for this whole life? For this whole lifetime, what did I want, or what was I seeking that I created this life? And what I got was, I was learning about what it is to be of service and what does it mean to be of help. Because when I went into this journey of discovering that lifetime, I came as a wounded person who said, I don't want to be a healer. I don't want to help anyone, because I think everybody kind of uses you, and you will end up being in pain when you help people, because from experience, it seems like helping people is not a good idea, And also from this lifetime, every time I would help people, I would be used, and I'd be like, why would I ever help people? I don't want to be a healer or a helper. Like, are you crazy? And then when I dove into that lifetime, I was telling the woman, see, that's a lesson. You shouldn't help people. And she's like, really? And she just kind of like downloaded her whole life to me, like as a memory. So it was like a lifetime of helping and, experiencing this community and Anyway, I can't say it in a few words, but I think you understand that there was meaning in it. And once you experience forgiveness and understanding of everybody's decisions in it, the reason I created that life and being a victim in this way actually gave me this wisdom to understand that, oh, at least for me, I understood that helping someone and being of service, for me, I learned that it's actually something you do just as a passion because you're interested in it, because it makes you happy. It's not about, obviously we can't go around helping like always at the expense of ourselves until we dig ourselves in a hole or something. But there's a balance there too. But yeah, I mean, there's an example of being a victim, but learning tons of wisdom from it. There's a purpose and reason for everything. That's what I learned.
Right. And
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, because I'm not, we've talked a few times, and I think I understand the shamanism that you follow and do. And in my course of growing spiritually and as a person, I've done what's called shadow work. And shadow work, to me, to clarify, is where you look at patterns in your life and say, okay, this is a situation that causes this. Where does it come from? And what can I learn from that root cause? And it could be in this life, past life, but it's not. I'm clarifying that because I don't want people to think when I say doing shadow work, we're dealing with shadow beings. That's something totally different. This is an internal modality of your own self, not anything created or destroyed. Well, I guess you could say destroyed because as you learn from the experience changes, and could the bad of it potentially is being destroyed and the good is being brought into the present. Is that, do I understand it correct? Is that kind of the shamanism that you're doing, or is it something different?
Yes, it's I want to like explain that many things in 3 words and it doesn't work. So yes, I'll say yes. That's a part of it. Totally, we do use the word shadow work. We are acting as kind of detectives and investigators, diving into wherever we're taken, actually, to find out what is the root cause of this thing that I'm experiencing, like pain or suffering. Usually we're triggered by pain and suffering. So that's what the things that we pay attention to. And like a detective, you dive in and you take into one thing and you ask more questions. You take into a deeper thing, maybe a lifetime, maybe something else, maybe something else. It doesn't have like rules and structure so much because every situation is unique. So in doing this shadow work, like the way I was taught to do it and the way I practice it, I, you know, I ask, I, I ask where is the root, of this thing, or I ask many, many different questions, which would take a long time to explain, but I ask detective style questions, and then I'm taken to the place where this, and then I sit with that and I interact with it, and if I feel like it, I go deeper, and if I feel like I've had enough for today, I leave it, and then I can revisit next month or tomorrow or in 10 minutes. It's my free will. How much do I dig into myself and what I do with myself? but also my teachers also stress that we need a balance between the digging into shadow work with going into, as she called it, light work, which is kind of too long to explain, but meaning, balance your self with light as well. Because if you keep digging into shadow every day, it can be quite daunting, and can be quite dark and depressing. And you need some light stuff too. So, experience some joy, pleasure, things like the way I do it is writing poems and painting, expressing myself. That feels like light to me. Um,
One way you
balance.
could look at it is in paganism and doing magic is when you remove a negative energy, you have to fill it with a positive energy. Otherwise, you leave a void, and that void can grow, and something much worse could fill the void, and you have opened yourself up to doing more work because you left a vacancy. And so, yeah, you have to balance it. And as you remove something, you need to replace it with its equal or opposite because, yeah, otherwise you're going to be constantly just like, for example, what I'm meaning is if I have issues with the relationship and I go and I do the shadow work and say, okay, this is where it came from, but I don't replace it, then another issue can arise. And you go, well, I did the shadow work. Why didn't it fix? And why is the situation getting worse? Why am I going deeper into the dark? Because you didn't put anything positive in. Whereas if I go, oh, I understand now this situation and I see the blessing in it and fill it with that, then if it arises again, your mindset is, oh, there's another layer to it. Okay, well, let's do the shamanist, let's do the shadow work on that. Let's nip this in the butt, not sit there and go, why did it not work?
Yeah. And also there are different more layers to it. So sometimes you do some shadow work, but you still find yourself, having similar problems. That means you need to go deeper and have another layer fixed, and then deeper and deeper and deeper. But at some point, enough gets shifted that you actually experience. You start to detect. Oh, no, I'm noticing that I'm different right now. Whoa! And as you're talking about the filling in the space, I was just tuning into what you mean. Um, and yeah, like the way I see it like a practical example that I can see myself, because I've been working with my fear of speaking a lot, as you know. So if I've been working like shadow work, like work, healing myself and doing a lot of shadow work on healing my fear of speaking, but if I actually don't use it for speaking, if I actually don't go out there and start speaking, little good does it do me, kind of. Like, yeah, like I could just stay in that darkness. But if I actually, like you say, fill that space, so if I fill that space with life by speaking, then it just, like, you bloom. um, and yeah, like light work.
Right.
um, my guides actually recently showed me this thing where I was doing too much shadow work on my fear of speaking. And I didn't want to speak unless I knew I have healthy intentions behind it. And then my guides were like, and I keep asking myself, why do I want to express this? Why do I want to express this? Why do I want to express this? And that nothing came through. And then I was shown an answer like, why does a tree grow? And I was like, what do you mean? Does it grow for sick reasons? It just grows. Every branch is growing, leaves are growing, fruits are growing. Why does it grow? Does it have to be a shadow reason why it grows? And growing symbolizes speaking, expressing yourself, being yourself.
Right.
And I'm like, no, it just grows because that's its nature. And they're like, it's your nature to speak and express yourself, and it's okay to just do that. Like, they said, yeah, maybe part of the reasons are still unhealthy in you, but then there are healthy reasons too. So why don't you just speak? And you can deal with more problems later, but you need to actually live your life and experience that light, the life. So I guess that's an example of balanced shadow
Yeah.
work.
Another way too to look at it is like you're saying with trees, is I always grew up hearing the adage, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. And I never understood that. I was like, and I'd always sit there and I'd say to myself, why do I care if the tree makes a sound? What it's like the tree fell. Of course it's going to make a sound. Everything makes a sound when it hits the ground. But then it's like I started thinking about it and going, well, why am I driving myself nuts trying to figure out why they're asking me if it makes a sound? And instead, I could just say, yes, it does, and move on and like go on with my day. Why do I give so much time to trying to like figure out why people are asking, or why am I thinking a certain way, instead of just realizing I'm thinking that I can change it, move on.
And it's like you activating like your creator part of you, like participating in life by creating. Like, I created an answer. The answer is yes. For now, it's good enough. Let's go on. Maybe one day I'll have enough curiosity to revisit the question. My answer will be no for another 10 years. And then I'll forget about that. But you're kind of being the creator in like, yeah, like filling the space, like creating that reality for yourself. I'm going to live in a world where the answer to that is yes. So let's experience the world like that. And you're being the creator, being
Yeah.
alive in that sense.
I even found myself one time thinking about it and going, do I ask where this tree is? Because we always assume the tree is on Earth. And so if it's in space, then no, it would not make a sound when it fell and hit something, because if space is the vacuum, no sound can travel. So it's like, well, it's like, wait, where's the tree? Where's this forest at? And it's like a whole nother scenario comes in, and it's like, oh man, that's like what I like to call the what if trap. It's like you can always go, well, what if this? What if this? What if this? What if this? And it's like, where does it end? There is no end, because there'll always be another what if.
Yeah, and in a way, every time you answer that question, you have created a reality. And that just reminds me, I'm looking at the yellow door behind you, and I'm like, now I understand that yellow door, because that's you creating, co-creating reality. Like, yeah, there is never an end to what if, because we are endlessly creating ourselves, co-creating our universe. And the questions what if is like the soil, the fertile soil that gives birth to all these new creations. And what if is a question for any writer to create a story, because the question, a story is an answer to a what if question in a way. And what if is a root, like, yeah, you are being the creator, and I see it as that yellow door of like, I decide that I create this now, And there's a million what ifs that I'm free to pick and choose from and create over there or over there or over there. Like, this is me as the creator. So
Yeah.
it feels cool to me.
We're getting close to the end of the hour. Do you have time to go a little bit over, or do you need a hard stop at the hour?
I don't need to. Do you need to?
No?
Okay.
Because I was like, so in transparency, we were talking backstage of seeing where this would go and being curious. One thing that you mentioned to me backstage that we were talking about actually just got triggered in my mind. And in the scenario that we were talking, I was like, oh man, there's some really powerful energy off of this. And that is doing the what if to a near death experience. Having a near death experience. How the what ifs can just be hiding the true lesson of the near death experience because it'll overshadow it. Do you feel that, or do you disagree?
I kind of.
What
I
I'm
kind of
meaning
see.
is,
Yeah.
if, say, I had a near death experience and I'm going, well, what if, this happened while I was doing that? And then you're like, well, what if this happened? Well, why did this happen? What if this didn't happen? Would I still feel this? And that's what I mean is it starts to muddle everything up.
Yeah, then for me, it's like a what if I didn't have that motorbike accident, and what if I didn't have that near death experience? What would my life be then? And I would say my life would be not as great as with the near death experience. The near death experience was like a gigantic medicine I needed to take at that time. Because I was just really confused and deluded in my life as a 16-year-old. I was too focused on goals and doing things that I kind of knew that I wouldn't even be able to do, and I didn't really want to do. I was anxietying myself to. That's a verb I created. Anxietying myself to sleep every night. Because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to do all the things I thought I had to do, and I didn't even have the self-awareness to understand why I was doing that. So my near-death experience kind of like slapped that out of me. It showed me like a perspective. Basically, I had a talk with my guides and had a realignment of perspectives of. Kind of like, yeah, do you think you came to this life to experience this life so you could do all this stuff that you don't even want to do? And I'm like, oh no. And I just completely changed my life. And even the moments after the accident, when I was in the ambulance going to another city, because I was the stupid kid that went to another city to get into a motorbike accident and didn't hiding from my parents. So I had to be going back in the ambulance back to the city where I lived in Bangkok. And in the ambulance, I was extremely happy because I was like, whoa, this is the best experience of my life. And I had a good-looking guy next to me who was the guy that crashed the motorbike, we didn't wear helmets, but I was the happiest person in the world because I was like, wow, this is life-changing. This is like a movie. I am in a movie. I am in this great movie. And I was just so happy with my realignment of my perspectives that my guides helped me to figure out. And I completely lost the fear of death because I was going crazy being afraid of death. I was going crazy loving vampires for that reason, because I really wanted to be immortal, because I thought anyway, my teenage brain, yeah, the I lost my fear of death. I lost my understanding that death is painful. It doesn't have to be if you don't want it to. And also, I understood that death comes exactly at the perfect time, and you get to make that decision. It's not just like perpetrated on you. It's like you're not the victim, even if it's a motorbike accident or something like that. You're not the victim. Um, you create your death moment, and I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And they kind of taught me like, why don't you live your life so you're okay today at any moment to die at any moment, because that part you won't know until you die, and then you will understand why you chose that moment. But before that, you won't know that you're going to die. So why don't you live your life not even knowing when you're going to die? Maybe today. So, like asking yourself, am I actually happy with the life I'm having if I die today? And if the answer is no, then adjust what you're doing. Like, this is the kind of lesson I learned from that. Did I answer that?
Yeah, you did. And my last question that I'm thinking for the viewers and for anyone who happens to watch this is it only if you're experiencing repeating patterns that it would be a good idea to seek out maybe doing some shamanistic healing, or what are some like telltale signs that maybe you could benefit from doing some of this work in your life?
Yeah, good question, actually. And just, you don't have to seek a shamanic healing practitioner only in cases when you notice something bad. But if you are seeking to create more of the good stuff in your life, like maybe be more expressive, more creative, if you want to write more or something, if you want to enjoy life more, that is also a reason for a shamanic healing practitioner. It doesn't have to be, oh, I have this pain, I have this problem, I have this issue that needs to be fixed. It's not only about that, it's about, I like more of this. And I also help and teach people with energy work, with healing work, um, how to, yeah, develop their psychic perception. So how to like talk to their souls, for example, how to talk to their spirit guides, and how to connect to basically whatever they want. Yeah, I help people with their psychic perception, whatever their issue is. If they're the beginner state, intermediate state, advanced state, there's always something that you can do with it. Just like with life, you have the negatives and the positives. You can always discover or heal something in that as well. So I do help people with that, with psychic perception. So
I think that's a great thing to hear because, like, for me, doing the shadow work and everything, I was always told and taught it's to fix things in the past that are affecting you today to bring them to a positive. And it's great to hear going to a shaman and experiencing, or when I say a shaman, someone like you who does the shamanic healing practicing, that everything could be great and being like you're saying, oh, I just want to enhance this, that's something that can be done, that it's not always for the bad, that you can also do it to like tune up and like kind of, I guess, amp up positives, which is something I don't think we're ever really told or taught in this world. So that's really cool to hear.
yeah, you can always enjoy yourself more, even cleaning dishes or taking a walk or doing whatever you do every day. I don't. Everything can go lighter and smoother and brighter and more exciting. So that's what I also do with my life as well. Um, and part of that is in my writing and painting. This is the kind of the light side, I guess. Everything has a light side. I don't know why I said that, but I see it as the brightest part of my life, the painting and the writing, which come together.
And talking about writing, you have a really cool book out.
Yeah, it's called Tales of the Spirit and the Divine. And here's the cover for it, because I just can't like write without painting or paint without writing. So it just comes together. And this is like my watercolor book cover, which I know is not a normal thing to do a watercolor book cover, but you know, who said that you can't? So
Right.
there
And
it is.
what made you pick all the symbology on the cover?
Partly it's the stories. There's a story about a blue crystal. So just because it says tales doesn't mean it's for kids. It's for adults and has explicit content. Don't. It's not for kids at all. Like, don't read it to your kids, guys. Don't. It has sexual content. It has a lot of stuff. Okay, so don't. So yeah, there's a story that has a snake in it. A bunch of snakes actually. There's a story that has a blue crystal in it, and then behind is a pink moon. I don't think with this lighting you can see it, but the whole thing also has like a bit of an esoteric feel to it, and 1920s elevator style. I really love 1920s elevators design.
Art Deco, as they call it. Yeah, Art Deco.
So I love that. Like, that was the reason for this one. And this is book one. It's a pretty short book, but I'm doing the second book now. This is the second cover. You can't see a guy there. Oops. This is me in one of.
You can see him. He's shadowed out by the arch behind. Oh, there, you can see his face.
It's not finished. That's why I can't see him. He has to be painted. So he's me. He's my soul in one of its forms that I see my soul. Every time I travel to my soul, like sometimes he shows up, and he has this archway, and it's full of gems. And then he explained to me that each gem is actually a lifetime of mine, which is a gem. Even if I had pain there or sorrow or something like that, even if I was the evil guy, each lifetime is a gem, and it's decorating the kind of archway to this is the like me, the source of me, and connecting to the source of all. And he's standing there like appreciating the whole thing and teaching me about me. So the stories in there are meant to help, to look at yourself. Every story is different. It's kind of, partly channeled, partly mine. It helps you find the divine inside. That's what it is.
Right. And what's interesting too is this is actually technically part 2 of the talk with you, if you count the reading we did as part 1. Is one of the things in the reading you kept saying is about me bursting out. And when I saw the light coming out of, like, bursting out of the archway, my first thought was, yeah, she's bursting out. And it's like, I was like, yeah, we talked about this in my reading. And it was like, yeah, it's like my mind automatically saw on the cover that and interpreted it that way.
Yeah, every time I learn something new, like what you said, and every book, I guess, is gonna be like a stage in my development, but in my growth, in my experience of myself. But whoever would be reading it would be connecting to their own parts of their journey, and to help them kind of figure out whatever they need to figure out in that, because it deals with stuff like fear and expansion, self-exploration. And the stories are in a style of magical surrealism. Like I call them surreal. They're not real, and they're not, I don't know, they just go just like my visions where I travel. Yeah, you're not necessarily on planet Earth. You're not, I don't know what it is. There's no bounds. So I guess the best word I can describe it is magical surrealism. Yeah.
It's a way to where, as with anybody who writes, they want to bring the reader into the story, and so they can feel it's partly their story. And that's what you're doing by doing it that way, is giving every reader the chance to say, okay, this one's not really my story, but this one is. And so that may be more in line of what your style is, or that's what it seems like to me.
I think they could find themselves in every story because that was the intention. And when I wrote the stories, I actually felt like I was in a kind of trance, and the story kind of comes by itself. And I'm almost like the writer of something that comes through. I am a co-creator, but it also is something that just comes through as an answer to a question, like a what if question. The answer comes, and I write it down. So yeah, I guess I don't know. It will be in the eye of the beholder. But I guess I don't know. I wanted to mention Clive Barker because he's the inspiration for me for my books. If you ever read his books of blood, they are kind of short books of horror. He's the guy who wrote Hellraiser.
Yep.
And okay. Yeah, I love his books. I love everything by Clive Barker and his art and just everything. I'm his gigantic fan. And I love the books of blood because they're like little short stories, and they're supposed to be horror. Like, yeah, there's horror stuff in it, but I always found so much love and life in them. It's like even the most horrible being that he's talking about, that guy has a story, and in a way he is living love, and like that I find is really magical and really transforming. Like a person who would read that, there's something transforms in you, where yeah, again, things like, oh, the perpetrator and the victim kind of maybe are not so black and white anymore. Like
Yeah.
Mr. Be Gone or something. Yeah, I love all his books.
Yeah, it's more like Jekyll and Hyde. You have both, and it's like the a Native American proverb that I heard, where a man had two wolves, and one would be nice to him, and the other one was mean, and so he would always try to correct its behavior through like harsh means, like he was taught. And he finally went up to the medicine man and was like, hey, why is this one wolf good and this one so bad? And he says, well, you see this wolf as good, so he's good. You see this wolf as bad, so he's bad. It's what you're feeding the wolf that's making the wolf who he is. And so he says, if you continue to feed him this harsh, negative energy, he's going to continue to react harsh and negative. Where this one, is that on your end?
Oh, you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's morning prayer time. I live in a Turkish village, and we have a mosque. So that's the mosque of the village. The guy is saying like, everybody go to pray now. Sorry,
Okay.
you can hear it. I can't turn it off.
No, I was just making sure that I wasn't like
Hearing stuff.
hearing something coming through and being like, oh, wait. maybe I shouldn't be telling this story.
Yeah, and if I wouldn't tell you what it is, you'd be feeding it your energy and
Yeah,
making assumptions and creating
and
choices.
yeah, and a lot of people be messaging going, "Oh my God, there was a spirit that came into their episode," and it's like, yeah, prayer spirit, but that's it.
Yeah, is the guy. He will sing for a while. Sorry.
No, it's fine, and if you need to go pray, we can end it. And
No, but yeah, and I totally agree with what you said with the wolves. The what you feed it or your perspective defines your experience. Um, yeah, and part of the healing with shamanism is looking at a new perspective and seeing things in a different light.
yeah, my other favorite native adage that you probably would get a kick out of is a man every day walks down to get water from the river, and he has on his back a stick with two pots, and one has a crack in it. And so every day he goes down, fills them up, and as he walks up and gets to his home, he sets them down and has to go refill one of the pots and can't understand why he's made to do this. And they say, well, look at the path where the water has been dripping out. There are flowers growing and beauty has arisen. So is that crack really bad in the pot, or can it be a good thing? And you have to sit there and look at it and be like, yeah, that's a really good point. Walking that pot back up from the water source has allowed all these flowers and plants to grow and thrive that would normally not be there.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was feeling about the lifetime of dying in front of in public, who didn't speak up for me, but took my help, um, or the warrior me who was dying. Because if I didn't have those experiences, I wouldn't have asked all these questions to myself and experienced the transformation, and perhaps changing my mind and saying that, oh, it's okay to settle down and grow a garden and have a house like like a farmer, as opposed to the warrior perspective who says, why do it when someone will take it away from you anyway? So everything has a light uh, a light to it.
Right. And I'd like to talk more about like the Akashics and everything, but it is getting it's getting late for me and it's early for you, and so I just feeling like we probably are at the end of the time for this episode. We can always have you back on for another episode to talk more about the Akashics and more about the shamanistic if you'd like.
Yeah, I totally enjoy these talks. And for anyone who wants to hear about Akashic record stuff, you can go to Expansionscapes, my YouTube channel, where I do share my experience of how I learned about the Akashic records and like everything about how I experienced the Akashic records. Not everything, but what I so far talked about. So yeah.
And if somebody watching this is feeling like maybe this is something I need to look into and would like a session, how can they reach you to get more information about being shamanistic healing practicing and maybe get a session from you?
They can write me at expansionscapes@gmail.com. That is the best way to reach me. but also they can type Expansionscapes on YouTube, and they'll see my YouTube channel, and all my contact information is in that YouTube channel as well. I have a website, but the website doesn't have a short domain. So the website, though, is in the YouTube channel, Expansionscapes.
Okay, and I did put a few of your links in the description, so if those of you watching, you can find that there. So thank you, Olga, for
Thank you.
coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yes, we'll have to do it again.
Yes, I'd love to. And good night to you and everyone in your part of the world. And good morning to me and people on this part of the world.
Okay, and so I will say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Just please, please, please make it a blessed day. Find the light in everything. And I think that'll truly, truly start to help the world. We need more light.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, with that, I am going to say good night to everyone.
Bye bye.